All right. We're talking today with Elroy Selke of Wyoming, Michigan, and the interviewer is James Smither of the Grand Valley State University Veterans History Project. Okay, I'll begin with a little bit of background on yourself, and to start with, where and when were you born?
I was born in Roger City, 1932, April 22nd, 1932.
Okay, and what part of Michigan is that in?
It's in the northern part,
Northern Lower Michigan, or?
yes, between Alpena and Sheboygan
Okay,
on Lake Huron.
all right. Now, did you grow up in that area, or did you move around?
No, I grew up on a farm,
Okay. And did your family own the farm?
yes,
Okay. And were they able to keep that during the 30s?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's over 100 years old in the family.
Mm-hmm.
Family name, and it was just about the end of the Depression when I was born.
Right. Well, the Depression still rolls on through the 30s, but by the time you can remember stuff, you're getting toward the end of it. Okay. And what kinds of things did you grow on the farm?
We grew mostly potatoes and beef at that time. We were not a very large farm, but it was a family farm.
Okay. Now, you were a kid when World War II started.
Yes.
Do you remember how you heard about Pearl Harbor?
I think it was on the radio, because we didn't have any TVs
Right.
then, so it would have been the radio and everything.
Okay. Now, once the war started, did that have any effect on your community or what life was like there?
Just that things were rationed, gasoline was rationed, and being on a farm, we needed the gas. And but we had horses also, so we
Got by.
yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. Now, how long did you stay in school?
I went through high school, and that was it.
Okay. And when did you graduate from high school?
1950,
Okay.
and then I had gone to Detroit and worked at Chrysler's auto plants for a year, and then came back to help my dad on the farm.
All right. Now, 1950, of course, when you graduate, that's when the Korean War starts, and they start ramping up the draft again. Now, did you have a deferment at any point, or could
No.
you have gotten one?
No, I couldn't get one either.
All right. Now, did you get a draft notice?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And do you remember when that showed up?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, once you got it, what did you do?
Well, I took a physical, and I was good. So after I got back, that's when I decided I was going to join the Air Force and go then.
Okay. And then why did you decide to pick the Air Force?
I don't know. I just didn't want the Army, or the Marines, so I took the Air Force.
Okay. Now, at that time, was the Air Force happy to have people, or were they selective?
I thought they were happy to have people,
Okay.
but after talking to a few people that had been in the service, they got picked out of the Air Force to do something else. So, but I had never heard of that until I heard from these people.
Okay. Well, then they said they had actually gone as far as training for the Air Force and then being switched over
Yes.
into a different branch. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So, so when did you enlist?
March 27th, 1952.
Okay. All right. And then where did you go for your training?
Lackland Air Base in Texas for 8 weeks.
All right. Now, what did the basic training for the Air Force consist of at that point?
It was very easy. We had schooling and done a lot of marching.
Mm-hmm.
And we did go to the rifle range a couple times. I figured we should have went more, but we didn't. And they had regular basic math and stuff for school in
Okay.
schools.
Now, how much spit and polish stuff was there?
Well, there was quite a bit, and I liked it because I liked to see myself in my shoes, and I could. In the same way, making your bed, I could bounce a quarter off of it. So
Okay. Now, did some of the other guys have more trouble than that?
I didn't notice anybody having really any trouble. No,
Okay. And how did the drill instructors treat you?
they treated us pretty good. Yeah, and we, like I said, I thought the Air Force, at least my basics were pretty easy.
Okay. Now, when you enlisted, did you get to request any kind of training or anything like that, or were they just going to put you someplace?
They just put you someplace.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after your 8 weeks at Lackland, what happens to you?
And I went to Warren Air Base in Cheyenne, Wyoming,
Okay.
and went to teletype communication schools, and everything was done on the teletype. Is your tape is all perforated, and you had to be able to know how many the holes in the tape, what letter it was, and all that. So we went there for I can't remember how many weeks was there.
Okay. So just explain a little bit, because a teletype, that's extinct technology. What was a teletype machine? What did it look like? How did it work?
It was a big box, probably about 5-6 feet tall, and about 2 feet wide, and it had a thing where you would put the tape in it, and it would print a hard copy, and you'd run it through.
Okay. Now, could you type anything into it? I mean, could you create your own documents, or was this just reading other stuff?
You could type in it too.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And had you ever learned how to type when you were in school, or was this all new?
No, I had some typing. Wasn't good at it, but I knew the keyboard, I think.
Okay. All right. Now, did they give you, when you were training anywhere, did they give you a typing test or anything like that?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Okay.
So we had to type. We tried to type 30 words a minute, and that was about it.
Okay. Now, while you were at basic back at Lackland, did you have any free time, or was everything regimented?
We had free time. You could go to the PX and stuff, and have a drink or two, and I think there was one night that we went and seen a baseball game in San Antonio. So it seemed like we had enough free time.
Okay. But you weren't going off the base a lot or anything
No.
like that? Okay. Now, did you have more independence when you were in Wyoming? Could you go off the base or have more time?
Yes, off the base anytime, and I got in with a fast pitch softball team that played in the city, and which I really enjoyed, and there was permanent party in people there that was on the team too, so I got in with them a little bit too.
Okay. And what does permanent party mean?
They're stationed there all the time.
Okay.
They're more or less instructors
Right.
for the base.
Well, were there other things going on in the base aside from your school? I mean, or was this mostly what? the base was
No, I never noticed it.
Okay.
But you could get out, and I think they have a big deal in Cheyenne around May 1st. They call it May Days, and you party.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Okay. Now, so basically you're there. So some of the people who are permanently there on the base, they're part of these teams, and you're going and you're playing along with them. Now, what was happening? Where were most of the guys you were training with? Where were they going? Because you train and then you move on.
after they got through training
Mm-hmm.
at Cheyenne, most of them went to Louisiana,
Mm-hmm.
and they were going to be retrained into probably going to Korea.
Okay. Now, what happened to you?
Well, I had a chance to go to Wright-Patterson Air Base in Dayton, Ohio. Now, one of the permanent guys I played ball with asked me where I wanted to go, and I thought, well, he wanted to know if I wanted to go to Selfridge Air Base, Detroit, and of course I said yes. And I don't know why, because I had never been out of Michigan in my life, and here's a chance to see some country, but nothing ever opened up there. But they had I think 2 or 3 man opening for Wright-Patterson Air Base, and he asked me, what about that? And I said, I'll take it.
Because it was probably better than Korea?
Yes, it was.
Okay. All right. Now, did you wind up staying longer in Wyoming than you would have normally because you were playing on the team?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So you missed the call that might have sent you to
Well, they
Korea.
had every week a class graduates.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's any openings for other areas in the U.S., they would send you a couple there and this and that. So I was there probably 2 or 3 weeks waiting to leave, and my job was cleaning the day center, emptying the ashtrays, and sweeping the floors and cleaning the restroom.
Right. Okay. So now you go to Wright-Patterson. What do you do there?
I was in the communications, still the teletype communications, and at that time I had gotten married, so I had my wife, and we had a daughter too, and come and stay. So we had base housing,
Okay.
and it wasn't much. It was just a piece of plywood. But it served.
Okay. So what rank were you at that time?
I was airman 2nd class.
Okay. And so that's basically the equivalent of a corporal in the Army?
Corporal, yeah.
Okay. So you have a little bit of standing. Now, if you had been still 3rd class or a lower rating, would you have been able to have your wife on the base?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I guess I was never interested at that time, so.
All right. Now, how long had you known your wife before you got married?
Oh, we went to high school together, yeah.
Okay. All right. And so what was daily life like for you while you were in Dayton?
It was just more like being a home person. We had no money, and we, with the baby and everything, we had cloth diapers and stuff, so they were all washed with a washing machine that you could set on the counter, and washed probably about 18 diapers, and that was a load. And then too, when I had time, I knew people that would be given KP, which is kitchen police, and they never liked to pull it because it is a dirty, dirty job. But I would say to them, if I was off, I'll do it for you for, I guess it was $15. And of course, they grabbed it. And I would go and work from probably, 4 o'clock in the morning till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night for my $15.
Okay.
But we needed the help.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, for your wife and your baby, did you have to buy your own food for them, or?
Yes, yes.
And could you get it at the PX or something where it was cheaper?
Right, we got it at the PX.
Okay. Now, at this point in time, were there a lot of young couples like you who were living in the base housing, or were you just a small group?
No, there was a few of us. I wouldn't say a real large, because actually our deals were like I say, almost plywood.
Mm-hmm.
A person in the next room next to you could sneeze, and you could hear it. So but it worked.
Okay. That's kind of wondering if there's sort of a community of you, where there was somebody for your wife to talk to while you were at work or anything like that.
No, we never really associated too much. We had a couple friends that we'd go and see,
Mm-hmm.
but that was mostly it. Otherwise, it kept us kind of busy, just cleaning up.
Mm-hmm. Well, babies are a lot of work.
Yeah.
All right. So, about how long did you stay in Dayton, do you think?
I'd say probably a good year or so.
Okay. All right.
And then too, because we had no money, when I would get a furlough, I'd drive back to Rogers City
Mm-hmm.
and pick potatoes for my dad. And I was just like another helper out there, and that's the way I wanted to be treated. And
Okay. All right. Now, at a certain point, though, you wind up leaving Dayton. How does that happen?
I had orders they gave me orders to go to Japan.
Okay.
And so then my wife and baby went back to Rogers City,
Mm-hmm.
and I went out to Oakland, and we went over by ship. It was a troop carrier,
Mm-hmm.
and so we had over thousands of people, and a lot of them were dependents
Mm-hmm.
going over to stay with their husbands, and we dropped most of them off in Okinawa, and it took me 18 days to get to Japan.
Okay. Now, what was the trip like in terms of the weather and stuff?
It was really good. There were days that the ocean was just like glass. There wasn't a wave. Quite a few days, and it was a good trip.
Okay. Now, did a lot of people get seasick on that trip, or?
They sure did. Yes, they were carrying buckets around before we even start moving the boat. So in Oakland, we didn't even get out of the channel, and everybody was sick. But someone had told me, "Don't miss any meals. Make sure you get breakfast, lunch, dinner, and you won't get sick."
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't.
Okay. So not even having the other people get sick around you.
It didn't. Well, it bothered me, but it didn't get me sick.
Okay. All right. And then did you have anything to do on the ship, or were you just on your own?
We were kind of on our own.
Okay. All right. So 18 days over. So do you remember where you landed in Japan?
Yes, we landed in Hong Kong. No, we landed in
Let's see, there's Yokohama or
Yokohama, I think it is, Japan.
yeah.
Yeah, Yokohama. It's a sailor's base or opening.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there we went by bus to Tachikawa.
Okay. All right. And that's the air base that you work at?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's where I started.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, at that point in time, I mean, what did Japan look to you, the area around Tokyo?
You didn't see many cars, and it seemed like when you seen one guy working, there was always five standing and watching him work. And of course, we got that now here.
Well, that's just a
In the
construction
United
site in
States.
Chicago, yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, and they had people sleeping on the benches, homeless people, and their shops were were fun to do. Of course, like I say, didn't have the money, but I'd go to some of these shops and they would have jewelry boxes and Japan was awful colorful. I mean, it has all kinds of colors, and you dicker with them, and you never ever paid the price that they started out with. So it was kind of fun to do that.
Okay.
But they had a lot of taxis.
All right. Could you see any damage from the war, or was that all cleaned up by that time?
No damage. And I don't know how much damage would have been in Tokyo.
Well, parts of Tokyo were burned up
Yeah.
and parts weren't.
Yeah, and we were kind of stationed right across from the Emperor's Mall, because he had this water, and his water was filthy, but it was good.
Okay. All right. Now, was there kind of a big downtown business district in Tokyo at that point? I mean, was the
Yeah.
Ginza? Yeah.
Yes, they did. They would have escalators. I didn't really see too many elevators, but they had escalators in some of the stores
Right.
and stuff.
Okay. All right. So, what was the base like that you were on?
It didn't even seem like a base because we were in a great big building, and we had you could get your haircuts there, you could get your meals there, you slept there, and we had Japanese people that served us and cleaned our rooms and so on. But the job was about a block away, and it was like an 8-story building, and most of the time 8 stories was probably the tops for Japan because of the earthquakes. And so we were on the 8th floor where we worked. And I know one day when I was there, just there, not too long, and I noticed their lights all hung from a big long chain, and as they were swinging around up there, and I thought, what's going on? And one of the guys said, "Oh, we're having an earthquake." I looked down 8 stories, and I wonder, where do I jump from here? But and we did mostly our teletype in Tokyo was weather, so we'd get messages that if there was a typhoon or anything going on, and it would come through, and we would recognize it, and they had bells that you could make on that tape, and you'd send it out, and when there was bells on it, you knew it was either it was something serious. So it went out to other areas in Japan.
All right. Now, were you communicating anything like, from between Korea and Japan, or
No.
anything else like that?
No,
Okay.
I was straight in Japan.
All right. Now, what was your sort of daily routine like?
It was just like a regular job. We'd get up in the morning and go and do our thing.
Okay, so kind of an 8 to 5 job sort of
Yeah.
thing, or
And from where I was stationed, we could see Mount Fuji. Never got there, Again, finances didn't allow it, but and I did eat at some restaurants, Italian ones. They had meatballs and spaghetti and stuff, and I did drink some of their beer.
Did you do any traveling at all in Japan?
I did not, no.
Okay.
And most everything was done by train.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, their trains, you better know what you're doing, because they weren't going to stay very long. So,
All right. But your trains you rode was going to be in and out of the city or within the city?
I didn't do any of that. no.
Okay. All right. Now, how did the Japanese people seem to treat or view the Americans?
They treated us pretty good. We had no problem with any of them, and we were treated well.
Okay. Did you encounter any who spoke English?
No.
So the ones you saw are mostly the ones who were waiting the tables or doing the other work on
Right.
the base, pretty
Yeah.
much. Okay. And so you were initially at Tachikawa, you were on the base, but you didn't stay there.
No, but I ended up going back there just before I left
Right.
there.
Yeah. In the meantime, where were you working?
I was working in Tokyo in this one building on the 8th floor.
Okay. Okay. So you're in the Yokohama. So most of that you're talking about
Right
is
there, yes.
But it's right by. But that's still very close to where your base was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all right there in that same
Right.
area, doing that kind of thing. Okay. How large a group of people were you working with?
Probably about 6 or 8. It was kind of on the small size.
Okay. And who were you reporting to?
Just the staff sergeant that was in charge.
Mm-hmm.
That's-
So you didn't see much by way of officers or anything
No.
like that?
No,
Okay. And how formal were things? Did everyone go around acting military and saluting all the time, or was it just like a civilian office?
no, not in Japan. It wasn't because we didn't have the officers there. Now, in Lackland, done a lot of it there, and the same way in Cheyenne, there was officers there. But even in Wright-Patterson, it was mostly just enlisted people that you were working with.
Okay. Now, did your team in Japan, did you get along with each other well?
Yes, yep. It had no problems.
All right. Now, how much contact did you have with home while you're overseas?
Well, I made one phone call at Christmas, and I think I started it probably about 3-4 days before it finally got through.
So how do you arrange a phone call in those days?
Now I'm trying to, that's something I don't remember really what we did.
Well, I know that, like, at least in the Vietnam era, there was this deal with ham radio operators or something like that, where you had to make multiple connections and
Yeah.
say over and that kind of thing, and it bounced around. But you also had to often make a reservation to be able to make a call. So was that kind of what you think you had to do, at least the reservation part?
It could have been. It could have been very much.
Okay. Now, did you write back and forth?
Yes, we wrote daily.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long did you spend in Japan?
It was close to 21 months.
All right.
I was supposed to stay 18 because I was a married guy, but somehow it ended up about close to 21.
Okay. Did you get to leave home at any point?
When I came home, when I left there in December of '55, close to credit. Well, no, it wouldn't have been, because it took me 19 days to get from Japan back to Oakland. We did spend one night in Hawaii, and that was. But we had to stay on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
We could get off in the daytime, but sleep on the ship, and then we left and went back to Oakland, and then I had a chance of either I had my orders. I was supposed to go to Arlington, Texas, and because I only had 3 months left, the government said, "Why don't we give you a Christmas present and call it quits?" And so I said, "Okay," and then they said we could have our physicals and discharge and everything right there at Oakland, or we could move to a closer base to our home and have leave for Christmas and then go back to that base and get your discharge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most of the guys took that. I wish now I had taken the other one, but anyway, because I was going to get my discharge, which I did at Wurtsmith Air Base in Oscoda.
Mm-hmm. And is that Upper Peninsula?
No, it's around Tawas.
Tawas, that's right, that's
Yeah.
right, okay. Yeah, all right. But in the meantime, you had basically 21 months in Japan without interruption. You didn't go anywhere else
No.
or do anything else. And so how is it that the Air Force was putting people on boats? I mean, shouldn't they be flying back and forth?
I have no idea. Yes, no idea.
Okay. Now, if you think back to the time that you spent in Japan, are there any other particular memories or impressions that you've got that you haven't brought into the story yet?
What was that again?
If you think back to the time that you spent in Japan, is there any other memories that kind of come back to you, or things that you remember about that?
No. It was just fun. We had a heavyset guy that liked to go with the taxis, and he'd reach his arms right around from the back seat to the steering wheel and tell the guy to put it down to the metal. But the people there at that time too, the kids were into a lot of volleyball. I mean, anytime they weren't working or in school, they were playing volleyball on the streets.
Okay. Now, I guess one thing I wanted to ask, did the Air Force provide you with any kind of entertainment? I mean, did you have movies or things like that?
No.
Okay.
No USO, no
USO,
nothing.
nothing like that at all?
No.
All right. Okay. Did any of the guys have Japanese girlfriends or things like that?
Yes. And that's one reason why I had an extension on my stay in Japan, because they left single guys go home because they were living with Japanese girls.
So they decided to ship them out first? And...
Yep, get them out of there. And they weren't supposed to do that, but they did.
All right. Okay. So now, and then what was the trip like coming back, the 19-day voyage?
It was good. It was a good trip, again, to Hawaii. But when we left Hawaii, we had rain and storms and everything, and we had a smaller boat. The first came back in an aircraft carrier that had probably 5 planes on it, but none of them worked. But we came back, and from Hawaii to Oakland was really a rough trip. In fact, midnight, the fire alarm went off, and of course they tell you to go back in your deal and have the door shut. But I was looking for 5 or 6 life preserves, because I thought we were going down. But it was...
All right. Survive all that.
Yeah.
Okay. So when do you actually get discharged then?
I got discharged around January 6th or something.
Okay.
Because what I did is I got home and spent Christmas at home. And I thought instead of using all my vacation, I'll get paid for it, that I'd go to Wurtsmith Air Base and get my physical and discharge and everything. So I did that, and I got to Wurtsmith, and they said, well, none of my orders had even arrived yet, but they could put me to work. And I said, look, I'll take a couple more days vacation. And so I was there every day just to make sure when they came in.
All right. Now, when you got home, did your daughter know who you were?
No.
How long did it take her to get used to having you around?
I can't really remember that anymore.
Okay. All right, fair enough. All right. So now that you're back from this and you've had your, I guess the other thing is, did the Air Force make any effort to get you to re-enlist?
No, they didn't.
All right. All right. So they're downsizing, I guess.
I probably would have if they would have gave me another stripe.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
But they
Okay.
didn't.
All right. So you get back home now. You're out of the Air Force. What kind of work do you do?
Then I went to Bay City, Michigan to go, and I went to school at School of Commerce. It was a business school.
Okay.
And I went there, and I had a chance to work for Reed Draper Chevrolet. So I go to school till 1 o'clock or something, and then work at Reed Draper Chevrolet. And my wife was able to, later on, she worked for Consumers Power at that time, and and we had relatives, or she did down there, so they took care of the baby, or Barbara, and that's kind of what we did. And we lived in a house trailer.
All right. Now, what kind of work were you doing for the car dealer?
I was a cashier.
Okay. All right. And then long term, what did you wind up doing?
Then I came home after that, and I had my application in at Rogers City Power Company, and I knew the manager there, and he offered me a job to work there. Mm-hmm. So I worked there for 2 years because one of the people at there had just gone into the Army. So they figured 2 years he'd be back. So they had an opening for 2 years. And then I put an application in then into U.S. Steel, because up in Rogers City was the Michigan limestone quarries. And I got a call then to come and work with them, and I worked there for 5 years. And then the Rogers City Power manager talked me back into coming back to the Rogers City Power. So I went back to Rogers City Power, and I worked there, and I knew at the time that Consumers Power was in the process of buying them out, but they promised everybody a job. So, and that's what the manager at the Rogers City Power said too, and he was a real honest, good guy, and so that's what happened. And then when Consumers did buy him out, they offered us a job, and I could have either went to Sheboygan, or I was offered a job in Traverse City. And of course my wife did not like Sheboygan, so we moved to Traverse City. And I worked there as a meter reading supervisor.
All right. Okay. Now, when you look back at the time that you spent in the service, do you think you learned anything from it, or did it affect you at all?
I don't think it really affected me any, and as far as learning, it was just an experience of getting out of the state to see how other people live.
Okay.
And there was times I thought I'd really like to go back to Japan again, but that'll never happen.
At this point, well, it'll be a very different place now, I expect.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to share your story today.
Okay.